This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are joined once again by Brice Palm, a great friend of the show, and we're going to be talking about college football, some NFL, and the UFC. We're going to talk about some big games happening in the college football this upcoming week, and then we talk about in the NFL our winners and losers of the first half of the season. And then we talk about some big fights that are happening and some implications that could happen coming from these fights. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. We have another trio this week. It's myself, Ben, that's Josh, and Brice is back. Man, he is just, he's becoming, I think he might be the all-time leading guest right now.
I was thinking the same thing. I think this is his third appearance.
This might be the top.
Unless Jared made a couple more appearances before I hopped on.
No, he didn't. He did not. And Chris Drew's only been on twice. So I think Brice has now hit the leaderboard of most.
So I think that leads to the question of, Brice, if people ever want to be a guest on the Baseline Podcast, how do they do it? You've managed to get on a third time. What's the secret?
I guess knows something about a certain sport that others don't. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I got on because of UFC, so.
Gotcha.
Just know something about curling, and we'll have you on for
lacrosse or something, and have a lacrosse special episode.
All right. If anyone out there, Will Compton is listening, that's how you got it.
Which, by the way, Josh gave up on that many moons ago at this point.
I think I got up to 30 days twice, and then I forgot one day both times, so I reset, and then I was just like, man, I've done this for 2 months now, and
maybe that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still doing the whole thing on Twitter to get Rich Eisen on, but that's what inspired me to do. I was like, dude, I wonder if Will could just view this and like it, maybe he'd get a kick out of it. I don't know. But he never did, and he never came on. But
hey,
if they're still doing the Rich Eisen tweets, man, that's crazy. Mad props to their guys.
That is props on their editing team. No, I will say this, that it's been a great weekend of football for sure. College basketball started, by the way. Which is awesome. I love college basketball. NBA is off going, and Cleveland Cavaliers are actually winning, which is awesome to see. So there's many things to talk about. But Josh, I think you have. We will talk UFC, obviously, because Brice is on. We can't waste that knowledge. We all know how last time went, and it was basically Ben was correct on almost every single thing, and we all know that I am the genius when it comes to UFC picking, as Josh loved to point out before we started recording. So. Yeah, that's what we're going to be finishing up with, but we're going to start with some football. So, Josh, hit it away. What are we starting with?
Yeah, so we'll go to the NFL, and since we're at the halfway point, I think it's time to talk some winners and losers of the first half of the season. Which teams have been shocking us? Which teams have been disappointing to us? Maybe some players and coaches that have surprised us positively or negatively. I'm just going to kick it off, guys. My biggest winner for the first half of the season's got to be the New York Jets. Right now, they're 6-3. They're tied for second place in the AFC East division right now. They're young. They got a quarterback that's not probably ever, the 30th option from most teams, right? You'd probably pick 30 quarterbacks before Zach Wilson, but they nailed this draft, getting guys like Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall before he got injured. And they just got the big win over Buffalo too, who's winning that AFC East division. So at least for the first half of the season, guys, my biggest winner, it's the Jets, and I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, Brice, you want to go with yours? What is your biggest surprise?
So we're going biggest winner first?
You can your biggest surprise.
Any
biggest
way
winner,
you want to go, man. I'm just opening up.
There's a lot of things. I mean, I could go with Justin Herbert's kind of stinky play, Aaron Rodgers' kind of stinky play.
Yeah, Tom Brady too.
Yeah, Tom Brady. I mean, there's so many ways I could go with it, but I mean, as an Eagles fan, I'd say the most surprising thing is actually the Eagles' success to me. The fact that we're undefeated. People can say what they want about the schedule and blah, blah, blah.
That's the other thing, man. I don't want to interrupt you, man, but does anyone realize how difficult it is to go undefeated in the NFL?
Super hard.
After 3 weeks, everyone except the Eagles was defeated at some point.
Yeah,
this is all the best guys from college football on 32 teams. Everybody's good. It's not college football where you're taking the best high school kids, splitting them up between, 130 something programs. This is the NFL. It's the best of the best. And I mean, if we want to talk about some teams that the Eagles have beaten, it's those teams have beaten other teams. We're not talking about the losses that they've had. So it's I don't care what the Eagles schedule looks like.
Yeah,
undefeated at this point, big W.
the stats that have been going around, I keep seeing people share that the Eagles have had the toughest schedule. So I mean, and people got to realize how those schedules are made. Like, so they base the schedule on the rankings from the previous years. So, like, for example, if you finished third in the NFC South next year, or you finished third in the NFC South, you'll play the third place team in the NFC East the next year. So it's like it matches it up even based on, kind of where the team left off from the previous year. Obviously, teams will look a little different, but Eagles have had the 12th hardest schedule. And we've played the Vikings, who are arguably, I would say, probably the second best team in the NFC right now, which actually is a team that I had predicted to go to the NFC Championship. So, man, Eagles have just surprised me. Jalen Hurts' improvement, I think, on that team, if I were to pinpoint one thing, has been the thing that has surprised me the most. Because I know in the beginning of the year when I was on and we talked about it, I thought like, okay, this is it. Like Jalen Hurts has got to do something. And I was really iffy, but man, I mean, the improvement that he's made is crazy.
Jalen Hurts is definitely a winner, and the only reason the Eagles aren't like the team that I headlined with is just because the Jets have been like a cellar dweller, and the Eagles, while they haven't been, crushing it by any means, they still got some wins in the division. They've gone, I think, first place a couple times in the last few years, but I mean, the Eagles, they're definitely worth mentioning. Jalen Hurts and the Philly squad. That trade for AJ Brown's looking really good right now. That defense is, I think, leading the NFL in turnover differential with 15. I think the second place is 7. So the defense is forcing turnovers. The offense is taking care of the football. The Eagles are a big winner in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to AJ Brown as well. I mean, that man, generational wide receiver. He's giving me Kelvin Johnson vibes. I mean, the dude's so big and buff. Like, you wouldn't think he'd be running like a lot of yards after catch when he gets the ball, but man, when he gets the ball, even on short downs, he's so elusive and somehow still breaks off big runs.
Oh yeah.
Ben,
who's a big winner for you?
So I have 2 quarterbacks that are big winners for me. The first big winner, and actually one of them, and then there's a third one that's a loser for me, right? The big winner for me is Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks. This is why I want you to listen to these numbers. Geno Smith, this season, right? Coming in, no one really thought, okay, what's going to happen, right? He is first in completion percentage. Yards per attempt, he's 7th. Touchdown passes, he's 4th. Passer rating, he's 4th. Expected points added per pass attempt, he's 8th. And the guy that was traded, to another team is, by the way, 3-5 and is outside the top 10 in almost every category. So for me, if you're Seattle Seahawks, to be sitting there at 6-3 with Geno Smith, who many people wrote off as just being a backup, a glorified backup, maybe start here and there. This guy has put on a performance that I might be too soon to say, but could earn him a contract next year. And, Josh, I know we talked about it. You know how high I was on the Broncos, but the Broncos just, that's part of this is the bad side, right? I think a big loser for me has been Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos combined. Like, Russell Wilson, you're paying him $245 million. And you got nothing. You've produced nothing. You're struggling. You're injured, and it's like the Seattle fans were bummed when he left. Some of them were happy, but for the most part, you're looking back and like, hey, who would have thought Geno Smith would be in a better pickup at this moment in time than what Russell Wilson was? And I think it goes to show that it's also what's around you, how it plays out, and Russell Wilson said, "Let's ride," but Geno Smith said, "Let's win." So, it's one of those things where I think at the end of the day, Geno Smith has just proven that when you work your tail off and you put the effort in, it's gonna come out to fruition. And the other guy, and this is not trying to be biased, but my other kind of winner when it comes to quarterbacks is Jacoby Brissett. Like, if you just talk about a guy who is told basically, hey, you're a fill-in until week 13 or whatever, when Deshaun comes back, you're not going to be the starter after this. What does he do? He goes out and he's in the top 10, top 15 in many stats, and he's maintaining an offense. Yeah, they're 2 and 3 and 6, 3 and 5,
3 and 5.
Yeah, 3 and 5. They're 3 and 5, right? It doesn't look great, but they're in the spot where they need to be. And he's made the throws he has to. He's not overworked. And so for me, that is a winner that I think no one will really talk about it. If they were 5-3, everyone would be talking about it. But since they're 3-5, it's not going to be talked about a lot. But Jacoby Brissett has really just it's shocked me on how well he's played and the throws he's made. The using his body, which CJ Stroud could learn more of, but that's besides the point. But it's one of those things where I think both Geno Smith and Brissett were told basically like, hey, it's kind of like a rental deal, and they've both kind of balled out and they've showed what they're worth.
Yeah, I think Brissett. I'll start with him. He's definitely been playing above, I think, what his caliber is.
Yeah.
He's been asked to do a little bit more, I think, than what he has in the past. And because of the record, people aren't going to talk about it. I think there's other reasons the Browns are losing games. And
absolutely.
You could argue Jacoby Brissett's one of them just because he's not, a top 10 quarterback, and there's throws that he just isn't going to be able to make with his skill level. But he's done more, I think, than what the team has asked him to do. And there's other reasons that Cleveland's losing those games, I think, that you can point to first before Jacoby. And then, Geno, dude, man. I mean, before the season started, we were talking about, okay, are the Seahawks going to draft CJ Stroud or Bryce Young
trade for Baker Mayfield
in the next draft, right? And then, the Baker Mayfield trades too. But mostly, like, this was a tanking season, and their first place. Meanwhile, the Rams, who I believe were your Super Bowl champ prediction, Ben, are 3-5. The Cardinals, who I thought were like trending high, are 3-6, and the 49ers are just 4-4 right now. So Seattle might have been looking at possibly being a contender for that first overall pick to now under Geno Smith getting, dare I say, a first round bye in the playoffs.
Oh my
goodness.
That's crazy.
That's still in play. I know the Eagles will probably get the 1 seed, but I mean, it's not like the Seattle has been mathematically eliminated yet, but they're going to get a home playoff game probably. So props to Geno Smith.
Yeah.
And then, I think I drafted Russell Wilson in fantasy football, so I feel everything you said about losers over there, and that is me right over here. Brice is in a league that I'm in. I'm pretty sure that's the league that I drafted Russ in. So big L to Russell Wilson. He's got just as good receivers over there with Judy and Cortland Sutton. I think he's got a better running game over there with Javonte before he got hurt, and now Melvin Gordon. But yeah, man, it's looking like Russ has been the issue low key. Like, and that's not to take away anything from the dude. He's won Super Bowls. He's been one of the NFL's top 5 quarterbacks in the past, but right now, man, it's just he's looking like a problem.
No, he is, and it's nothing against what he's done in the past, but there's a point when I think that the table starts tilting a little bit, and you're kind of running out of steam, but it's starting to go downward rather than upward. And you look at Aaron Rodgers is not the same. Tom Brady is not the same. I hate to say that because it's Tom Brady, but let's be honest. Watch some of his games. He's not the same. There's so many of these quarterbacks that aren't the same, and I think you're seeing this new generation. I mean, think about Baker Mayfield. We've all been proven. I've been proven right, and Josh has been proven wrong. That Baker Mayfield truly is not a quarterback that will ever probably be a consistent starter, at least in the near future. But this happens in football, right? And it's nothing against any of these quarterbacks. It's just, hey, these are the ones we see that are doing well. And I think, even Justin Fields this last week has shown what we all knew about Justin Fields. He finally was able to show it. It was in a loss, but he was still finally able to show
that man said, fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah,
Thanos style.
But literally though, Justin Fields, I tell people, if you put him on a good team, oh my word, can you imagine if he was on the Ravens or if he was on the let's say even the Seahawks or one of these teams? Can you imagine what those offenses would look like? And it'd be crazy, but that's just what happens. It's the cards you're dealt.
Yeah, I so badly want to see the former Ohio State quarterback do well in the NFL, and I really thought Fields.
I think he will be. I think he'll be the one. I think he. I mean,
that's the vibe, right? Is Ohio State can't produce quarterbacks. JT Barrett flop, Braxton Miller turns into a wide receiver, Dwayne Haskins doesn't pan out, and Justin Fields.
Pryor didn't do anything.
Terrell Pryor had to play receiver. Yeah, the list goes on and on. Even through 3 different coaching, tenures at Ohio State, Tressel, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day. It's like, where's the quarterback talent? Even Troy Smith winning a Heisman. I think he ended up being a 6th-round pick and a career backup. So that's not to say that, just because Wyoming produced Josh Allen, that they're like a better quarterback factory than Ohio State is. But it's just like, you would think after having all these playoff appearances that one of those quarterbacks would do something in the league. But
that's true.
It is, that is a fun little side discussion to have another day. But I'm going to throw out a loser, guys. Josh McDaniels.
Dude, by the way, Brice, I just want you to know, Josh was never for this. Like, Josh
I was never
so
for
against
this. I was against Josh McDaniels from the get-go. But even with that, I thought the Raiders, after making a trade for Devontae Adams and grabbing Chandler Jones in the offseason, I thought that the Raiders would be finishing second place in this division. And, I mean, how do you make additions to your offense and defense like that and get worse? We saw, like, Rich Bisaccia as an interim coach and Derek Carr led this team into a wild card spot that they had no business winning. And Josh McDaniels comes in here with a better roster and tanks them to the bottom of the division. So I'm looking like what's the common denominator here? I don't know. I haven't watched a Raiders game yet to know what's going on here. If Josh McDaniels is just clueless at calling plays, but I'm seeing a lot of Derek Carr hatred, and I'm like, this guy's been an MVP candidate multiple times. He can play ball. It's definitely not on him. I'm pointing it at Josh McDaniels 100%.
Hey, I agree with you. I've always said Josh McDaniels has never truly won anywhere he's went. If you really think about it, he's never truly won.
Like, in the chances that he's had away from Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I think he was at Denver for 3 seasons. He had the one playoff appearance with Tim Tebow where he had the miracle overtime touchdown pass. He got hired on as the Colts head coach and then flaked on that, which is why they had Frank Reich, and side note, fired this week. So he fled back to New England.
Saturday, by the way. Jeff Saturday.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could say this is Josh's third chance at becoming a head coach, and it doesn't look like he's got it in him. Looks like he needs Bill or he needs Tom to be successful wherever he goes. So that's what I'm saying. Leading off my losers with Josh McDaniels. I don't know if Ben kind of already threw one out with Russell Wilson. Brice, who's a big loser in this first half of the season for you?
I mean, probably the easiest one, a lot of people would agree, is the Rams. I mean, I don't even know who to point the finger at. I mean, I think a lot of people still have them in the Super Bowl or at least NFC Championship, just because it didn't look like there was going to be anyone in the NFC that was on that level. And I don't know. I don't know where to point the finger. I mean, it's practically the same team. I mean, maybe they don't.
Von Miller took off to Buffalo, but I think that's the only notable loss. Andrew Whitworth retired. Like, I mean,
would you want a 40-year-old as your left tackle? Like
if you're Andrew Whitworth, I'd take you. I'm sure the Rams would. Sure. I don't know if their left tackle is an issue right now, but I'm sure that they hated to see him go at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have Odell, but he's injured. He's not, I don't think, fully
healthy. Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson, I think, had a couple injuries there too, but I think
the play has just been mediocre on every end.
Right, like Matthew Stafford's nowhere near where he was last year. I think Cooper Kupp's been good. I mean, it's tough to maintain like a record-setting pace that he had last season, but
teams are figuring out. They're doubling him. They're bumping him off. They'll start with a nickel. They'll bump him off to a linebacker, then we'll bump him off. Like, they're just like almost like basketball, right? When you play zone and you bump him off. It almost seems like this is what they're doing with Cooper Kupp. They're like, okay, if you want to beat us, but we're going to make sure we lock down on everyone else. And I think that's what is changing Stafford, is he can't make those throws to Kupp, I think, as easy as he was able to last year. And I also think that was Odell. I think having Odell at the end of last year specifically, like, it opened up things because people are also scared of Odell, whereas now it's like, who's your other guy? And that's the question, I think, for Rams fans. But
right now they're 29th in scoring offense,
which is unreal. That's just weird.
Yeah. And I'm about to check to see where defense is ranking right now too, because I mean, I would have never thought that like a Sean McVay led team, or a Matthew Stafford led team.
He's spending more time right now on Campbell's Chunky Soup commercials than he
Campbell's Chunky Soup ads
than he is.
Have you seen that video where McVay like memorizes plays from like
it's stupid?
Yeah,
20 years ago?
They pick like a quarter and like a time on like a random date, and he can tell you the exact play. Okay, so much better on the defensive side of the ball. It looks like they are 7th in scoring defense, allowing 21.6 points a game. So looks like offense is who we got to point the finger at.
When you have Aaron Donald in the middle of your defense, I think that's pretty solid.
Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. I
think you're fine. Then again, the Browns defense sucks. But I will say, I want to throw out one, like, sort of like a loser. I wanted to add this one real quick. I'm going to say this. I think for me, one of the bigger, I think more of a shock loser to me is the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers has looked like literally I've never seen Aaron Rodgers look like this. Like I at least the last I remember. And I think everyone thought the Packers, like, they might not be great, but they were going to be good or good enough to get out of, but when you lose to the Lions, I'm just saying,
dude, that
like,
interception you threw to Aiden Hutchinson in the end zone was not good.
no. And so for me, it's the Packers. And I think I'm very shocked of how they're playing, but I think it goes with all the veteran QBs. I think him and both the Buccaneers and Packers fall in that same line. Like, I think, and I'm going to say this with a very brisk pause, we might be seeing the end of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers era. And I mean that. Like, we might be seeing the end of this. And I wouldn't be shocked if I think there's a good chance that, Tom Brady does retire after this year. Because do you think you're competing at the best level? Because both you and Aaron Rodgers right now are not competing at the best level of these other quarterbacks. I mean, heck, Geno Smith's having a better year than both of you. Let's just put it that. Yeah. Let's say that one more time. Geno Smith is having a better year than both Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers.
The other thing that sucks for Tom too, dude, man, is like he basically threw his marriage away for this season, exactly. Right? Just to go 4-5 and have one of the worst seasons of his career. So it's like if he retired after this and he just wanted to get this last season in and that's how it ends, like, I mean, that sucks for him.
That is true. That is true.
To follow up with Green Bay, dude, watching them Sunday is just like they literally don't have anyone to throw the ball to, and we knew that was going to be the case when they
always
passed up. When they passed up receivers in the first round, when they trade Devontae Adams away, it's like, okay, Green Bay literally has nobody but Aaron Rodgers now. They're not going to be the 13-3 or 14-3, I guess, Packer team that we've had the last 3 or 4 years. He's covered a lot of issues on that offense, and I would have thought, okay, now they don't have Devontae. Maybe that still puts them around like the 10-7 realm, but they're 3-6 right now, and I didn't see him playing that bad.
Well, all I know is Josh has said this for months now. He goes, "We've said this for years. They needed a receiver, and it's like they just want to always just tick Aaron Rodgers off. They just never want to give it to him.
But you have Devontae Adams. You don't need any more.
Now they don't have him
either. And then they took that away. Yeah, like they do everything they can to piss off their quarterback, and most teams do the opposite of that. They pay them, the king's ransom with salary. They go out and trade for a big time receiver. Like, look at almost every single quarterback in the league. Miami did that for Tua. The Bills did that for Josh Allen. The Chiefs did that for Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, well, Amari Cooper. It's building blocks, baby steps.
Right.
But most teams will do that for their franchise quarterback, and the Packers just for what reason or another haven't done that. So,
yeah.
I gotta say one other thing too, guys. I don't know if you did much research on awards, because I haven't either, but I definitely got a hot take for MVP for you.
Oh, I want to hear it.
In the first half. It's got to be, to me, I'm going Tyreek Hill. A non-quarterback wide receiver leading the league in catches and receiving yards has turned the Miami offense into like borderline what the Rams were last year. Like, Tua has 2 receivers now that he can just gunsling to. And with me, I didn't know if Tua had the ability before. I just figured that his health was always going to keep him from being a good football player. And whether it's a little bit of him just figuring things out this year or the addition of Tyreek, and now you can't double up either him or Waddle. I think he's just taken that Miami offense, maybe even the whole entire roster, to just another level that, like, we haven't really seen many receivers be able to do. Like, the whole I think the narrative is shifting. In the past, it's been like receivers don't really matter. Look at Tom Brady throwing to Julian Edelman, and now it's like, no, receivers do matter, because look how much better and scarier your offense can be if you have like a Stephon Diggs, a Tyreek Hill, or a Cooper Kupp. So
yeah,
that's why I'm going with Tyreek Hill right now, and that is subject to change in the second half of the season if he doesn't maintain this. But right now, guys, he should be finishing with around, I think, 150 catches and 2,000 yards, like right around where Cooper Kupp was last year. I'm going MVP Tyreek.
It is funny, Josh, because you say that, and I read an article that said Nick Chubb would be so happy with all these mid-season picking him to be MVP awards if it wasn't for a guy in Miami named Tyreek Hill, because people literally looking because people are looking at Nick Chubb's stats, and they're like, this is unreal. He's gotten less carries than Henry. He has more yards. Now he doesn't. He's 18 yards behind, but still, he for most of the year has just been dominating. And they're like, oh, he would have been leading if you would just have Tyreek Hill.
And I love Nick Chubb too. It's just I think you got to have some team success, right? And it's like, okay, well, how valuable is Nick Chubb if what he's doing is leading to a 3-6 record?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think MVP, you think who's helping this team win.
Right. And it's not even necessarily to say like it has to be the best player on the best team. Yeah. It's just like who has taken that team? Like how important are they? Like are the Browns still 3-6 without Nick Chubb? Maybe if Kareem Hunt fills in. That's not to say that Nick Chubb is like terrible by any means. I think he's the best running back in the league right now. But I think right now Tyreek has been a much more valuable player to Miami than what Chubb has been to Cleveland.
Yeah. If we were to go around and pick the MVPs of each team, I would agree with you that Tyreek Hill has been the MVP of the Dolphins. I don't know if I would pick him overall in the entire league. I'd have to do some thinking on that one, but he could be in the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this year is the year where you're going to see, I think maybe a running back in the discussion, whether that's Henry or that's Chubb. I think this is the year you're going to see at least one wide receiver in the conversation. Like, I just think there's this new, I think with the quarterback year being kind of down, this is the perfect time for these guys.
That's the other thing too, is like all these good quarterbacks are having down seasons right now, which is going to open the door, I think.
Exactly. 100%. I agree with you.
Boom, man. That's a lot of good NFL discussion. You guys got anything else to add or any other topics you want to go over?
Josh, we need to pick the Browns game because we have this little like thing going on where
we got to pick some games, boys.
So let's see. Right now, hold on. Let's give an update. I believe I am now, you're 3 games behind me now. So you're 2-6. Right. Yes. I think so, right? Yeah, and I'm 5-3. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right.
After all that I just said about Tyreek Hill and the Miami offense, who can solve this for me? Miami's the home team this Sunday, and they're only a 3.5-point favorite against the Cleveland Browns.
It's called that defense.
What does Vegas know that I don't?
So, Josh, the question is who are you picking? Because this could determine. Now, if we go opposites again, then there's a chance you're right. I mean, depending on what happens.
Well, I'm no sports bettor, but I would take Miami to cover that. So I'm taking Miami in a victory this week, straight up, at the very least.
I'm going Browns 27.
You're gonna trust that secondary that's been burned time and again.
I have not picked yet, Josh. I have not picked yet.
Didn't you just say I'm going Browns?
No, I said I was gonna say the score. Okay, listen out to the score. Okay, the Browns 34. Okay. Dolphins 31. So yes, I did choose the Browns. So
you did. I thought you were gonna say the Browns score and then the Dolphins with the winning score next. I was like, oh, my bad. It's like no. But you think that? I mean, I could see it being high scoring, dude. I don't know like where Miami's defense necessarily ranks, but
all I know
I don't think we're keeping Miami under 30, dude.
Listen, Josh. I mean, if you look at our records, there's obviously one person here that knows what he's talking about. So.
I can't say anything.
I'll take the Fins. I don't think the Browns are gonna. Fins are for real. They've earned my respect.
Hey, just wait till Ben next week is sitting here at 6-3 and Josh is sitting there at 2-7 and just struggling.
I'm glad that we picked differently though, because this gives me a chance to catch up.
That is true. Last week it screwed you over, but that's fine.
And this is a game that I have no problem picking against you on.
I know you don't. I know. So yeah, that's the Browns, but I think we could talk about the Eagles game too, since we have.
We do have to talk about the Eagles because the Eagles are being viewed much more highly in Vegas than what the Browns or the Dolphins are, I guess. The Eagles right now at home are an 11-point favorite against the Commanders on Monday night.
You mean the Redskins? Remember
the Redskins, the Commies, the football team. The team that's about to not be owned by Dan Snyder anymore, possibly. A lot of options.
Possibly going to be owned by. Let me think. Who is the
Jeff
one?
Bezos.
No, Kevin Durant put his name in there as well.
Oh, Kevin Durant, threw his name in there to be like a minority. Yeah. I mean, anytime that Vegas puts a team as a double-digit favorite, it's always like a huge overmatch, and I expected the Dolphins-Browns score to be like that, but they definitely think that this is a Phillies dub, and I think so too. But Brice, is there any reason that this game could be close?
Could it
You
be
think?
a catch game?
Not really. I mean, it's in Philly. I mean, you could say it could be close because it's prime time. There's always extra nerve and whatever. And they last time I believe they played Wentz. This time they're playing Heineke, so um, game plan might look a little different. But I don't have any real reason to be like, oh, I'm scared.
Yeah, I
Nah,
mean,
easy win. I think Eagles cover the spread.
What's your predicted score?
Let's see. I really want to see Philly step it up in the second half. We keep coming out with explosive first halves and dying off in the second half. I'm gonna say this week we do more of our scoring in the second half. I'm gonna go 35-23.
Ooh,
Taking Philly.
I like that. I like
right.
that. Josh, what are you going with? What's your prediction? Score?
Score-wise, I'm gonna go Philly, and I'm gonna pick them to go 31. And I think that the Heineke-led commies are gonna go 20. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be right on that 11-point spread.
Of course you would. I'm gonna go Philly 41. I'm gonna go the commies 13. I'm gonna go
Ooh,
big
big
blowout.
big dub. I
So
just
Statement
Hurts is
game.
gonna be sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter, then, right?
no, because they'll probably make a stupid decision and he'll get hurt because they just think they want to run up. I'm kidding. That's the
Oh,
Browns
man.
decision. That's
Hey,
what
that's
Browns
the
are doing.
MVP you're talking about right now.
Oh boy.
Hurts is
Here we go.
definitely in that discussion too, man. I mean, being
Oh,
the
yeah.
quarterback of the only undefeated team left,
Listen.
you got to be.
Cade York is MVP discussion, okay? I'm kidding.
Oh man.
It's getting late here. I'm sorry, guys.
So that is now officially all NFL discussion for the day, right?
Mhm.
All right. So let's move on to some college football games now, because last week it didn't look like there was going to be
OHIO.
much to like watch, and then we ended up having a lot of upsets. We had 3 top 6 teams go down.
Mm-hmm.
This week I think we have a couple other possible upsets to be looking out for as well. But let's start off with this one, guys. LSU, after the big win over Alabama at Baton Rouge.
Who called it?
Did you? I know we were talking with Jake about it, man, but I didn't think that the LSU, I thought Bama would take the lead early and LSU wouldn't be able to catch up. But yeah, if you
I
did
predicted
pick
that
I
one.
can't remember.
I predicted that, and then I kind of didn't really give like a certain detail on the show. But then when I did my actual picker on my phone, I actually picked them, and I actually got the score pretty close. So I was pretty close to the score. So double down on that one.
Well, after the big win against Alabama, LSU now is only a 3-point favorite at Arkansas.
Interesting.
What do we make of that? Is this Vegas saying that LSU's due for a letdown? Is this Vegas saying KJ Jefferson will be a quarterback and Arkansas is a passing team that can actually take advantage of some weaknesses in LSU's defense?
I think this is where I think Josh, we talked about how we thought Tennessee might have a letdown. Was it Tennessee? Yeah. Well, we thought we had
Tennessee
a letdown
against Kentucky trap game. We thought that was going to be a loss.
The difference is, I think LSU, they've had these weird games this year where they get blown out. And so for me, I think there was so much hype in the Alabama game. Brian Kelly needed that win. He needed that win to cement himself to say, this is why I came to the SEC. And I think I truly believe, I don't know if they can walk out of this game with a win. I'm still like, I almost feel like they're really overhyped right now because they got this huge win against Alabama. It's just hard for me to go, can they really walk out with a win? I don't know. I mean, really
on the flip side, Arkansas's got a pretty bad defense. They're 5-4.
They lost to
KJ
Liberty.
Jefferson's been banged up a couple times. Yeah, so it's not like Arkansas or even Fayetteville's like a tough road environment to go to.
What happened to Arkansas, man? They had such a good team. It's like they just cannot deliver in any of these ranked games.
At one point, Josh had their running back on his Heisman list.
He was that good, man. He was top 5.
I could see
tearing it up. But yeah, man, this is a tough one for me, dudes. I don't know who I'm taking in this one, honestly.
Yeah, you think Arkansas would have to win another game at this point, but they just they can't. They've proven they can't. So I'm going with I'm going LSU.
Yeah, they had. I mean, looking through Arkansas's schedule, like if I remember right, they've beaten Cincinnati, they've beaten South Carolina, but they lost to Texas A&M, they lost to Alabama, they lost to Liberty last week. So it's like they've beaten a couple, I guess, decent teams like Cincinnati, South Carolina. I don't think they're awful, but nothing that anybody's gonna call a quality win either. And LSU, on the other hand, they've beaten Ole Miss, they've beaten Alabama. Tennessee blew them out with the pass game that they got, and I don't think Arkansas's pass game exactly matches that. But I'll go ahead and say LSU, but I'm not very confident. It's not a game that I'd be betting on.
Yeah, I'm going to go say Arkansas. Arkansas pulls the upset, not by a lot. I think it's going to be by like less than a touchdown. So I think Arkansas pulls out a win here. And I think it makes the loss for Alabama look that much worse, which makes me that much happier.
That is nice. Yeah. I mean, LSU too, dude, they only beat Auburn 21-17. Auburn's in the bottom of the SEC West.
Can
right
I
now.
also say, Josh, there's a good chance that we might not see Alabama or Clemson in the Final Four. Doesn't that make you happy?
Oh, I mean, I think we're definitely not seeing Alabama, dude. I think as long as Clemson wins out, is a one-loss conference champ, depending on what the rest of the field does,
of course,
they still got a chance. But we still haven't seen a two-loss team in the college football playoff yet. So that's why I'm saying that Bama probably is definitely out of it at this point.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Moving on. Speaking of Alabama, they're a 12-point favorite at Ole Miss. We've seen Bama struggle in some tough road games at Texas, at LSU, and at Tennessee. But we've also heard Lane Kiffin complain about how home games at Ole Miss are lame. And Ole Miss has lost to LSU, who Bama has also lost to. So this one, to me, guys, feels like
Alabama's going to kill them.
Alabama killed Mississippi State after their loss to Tennessee. So, like, regardless of what you think of Alabama, I think they come off of a loss with a victory here. I don't know if maybe they cover. I think Ole Miss, the run game over there is still pretty good, but I'm taking Alabama to win.
I'm going to say this. Alabama wins 52-21. I honestly think, right? Like, yeah, Ole Miss got a run game, but I think Alabama's just going to pile on the points, I think, fast. I think they're going to open up the gates because I think Saban's mad. Like, I would not want to be a player this past week. I'm just saying.
Just give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs every play.
Just hand it off to him.
Screw Jermaine Burton, screw Tyler Harrell, screw Ja'Cory Brooks. Just give it to that man every game, every play.
I'm siding with Ben here. I like his prediction. I was going to make a very similar one. I'm actually, but it's more so I'm not super sold on Ole Miss. But yeah, Alabama coming off a loss. I'd hate to be a player on that team.
Yeah.
I say, sure, man. As much as I hate to say it, I really still think Bama has a chance to somehow squeeze into the playoff.
Oh yeah, you know why? You know why, Brice? Because it's called Alabama, and they're going to try to get them in any way possible.
Yeah, they're going to try so hard, and they will probably succeed somehow.
I don't know, man.
And it's going to start with the win against Ole Miss, a big win.
They do. It will look good on the resume for sure, but I mean, Bama's been in this position where they've had 2 losses and they've been like arguing their case to make the playoff, and the committee wouldn't let them in.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
So
yeah, it looks like the committee is really focusing on the record this year, at least so far. I mean, TCU is number 4. If you were to look at the power rankings, at least my personal ones, I don't have TCU in the top 4, but records talk.
For sure, man. And speaking of records and TCU, they're going to Texas. But Texas is a 7-point favorite in this one.
Josh loves how much high ranked Texas is.
Texas is so frustrating to try to bet on, man. Like, if you're a bettor and you bet on Texas, like, you got to have a headache from it, man, because it's like you never see the same team twice in a row.
Yeah.
But at least in this case in particular, I think TCU has escaped. Well, I don't know if escape's the right word, but they've played some teams, one score that they probably should have beaten by way worse, whose quarterbacks were also injured in those games. And they got issues on the defensive side of the ball, which I think Texas defense, while not elite, I think it's solid. I think they can maybe make a couple stops. I'm going to go ahead and go with Texas in this one. I don't believe that TCU is a team that's going to finish undefeated, and they got not the easiest of roads to finish undefeated either, guys. I think that this game might be that loss.
Ooh, yeah, I'm. Ooh, that's
Bijan
tough.
Robinson went off last week too.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be feeling good about Texas, only to be let down again, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, I don't
It's
know
like,
if
what version of Texas are we gonna get?
Yeah, and that's my thing. I don't know what version, and I'll say this: I have not been a believer of Dugan all year, or Duggan, however you want to say it. Josh knows this. I've been kind of like, but man, there's just something about this guy, and there's something about this team that just somehow finds ways to win. And I'm actually going to pull for TCU. I think TCU is going to win this game. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be a score of like 49-42. I think it's going to be just one of those shootouts. And yeah, I think TCU pulls this out. I think Duggan has a huge game, 300 yards or whatever. But I think he's just going to have a great game. And in some cases, I want this to finally be the end of Texas in the top 25 for crying out loud.
Yeah, they've been that team too. That's like they keep trying to fit them in the top 25, and it's like, why?
Exactly.
Because they're Texas.
Because they're Texas.
Who do you got,
brand?
I am taking Texas. I think Texas is back, baby. I think they're here to stay for the top 25. I know it seems like every other week it's in, it's out, it's in, it's out, but I think they're back. Yeah. I will say though, if TCU does pull it off, it will definitely solidify Duggan's, however you want to say it, position in my top 5 Heisman list. He's still there currently, that we'll get to later. But if he wins, I think he definitely cements himself in that spot. But I don't think they're going to win. I think they're going to be exposed. Texas is back. They'll stay in the top 25 till the end of the year.
Let's move out to the Pac-12 for this matchup. We got Washington at Oregon. Oregon right now is a 13.5-point favorite. Bo Nix is looking, absolutely insane. Washington still, though, is I think 7-2 right now, and they got Michael Penix, who's been an absolute gunslinger. And Oregon's defense also is one that's really easy to throw on, as we've seen several times throughout this season. This game, to me, guys, I thought Oregon UCLA had shootout all over it.
This one does.
I think this one also does. And whether or not Oregon wins by 2 scores, I don't know. I wouldn't bet on that, but I am going to go ahead and take Oregon to win at least.
Oh, yeah. This one's tough, but I'm going to stick with Oregon. I think Bo Nix has been playing some of the most solid football for sure of his career, because he left Auburn. Sorry, Cranes. He left Auburn. That's why he's better now. But Bo Nix is playing really good ball. He's got like 12 rushing touchdowns along with his, 18 passing touchdowns.
He's actually got the most, I think, total touchdowns when you factor in passing and rushing. He's first.
Yeah, and so I think Bo Nix is playing really well, and he's really just helped this team, I think, ascend. But again, their defense is, I think, not good at all. But I think this game's going to be, I think Oregon wins this 56-45. I think it's going to be a really high scoring game.
Yeah, like the UCLA game, dude, that was a good win for them, I think. Like they had the embarrassing loss to Georgia week 1, then it was like, okay, they're winning, but who are they beating? And then UCLA like limiting Zach Charbonnet and DTR the way that they did. Like I mean, they still had good games, but they didn't go off like what they typically would. So I think they can at least maybe get one key stop against Washington. Michael Penix might throw a pick or 2 in this one, and that might be the difference there. Plus, Oregon's the home team in that one, just like they were the home team for that UCLA game. So home field advantage, super important college football we've seen over and over again this season. So, yeah, that's another reason, I guess, why I would take Oregon. Brice, the expert picker, what do you got?
Yeah, I have to quickly bring up how I'm still a little bit bitter from when I was on a few weeks ago. I don't think I got a proper shout out from – I think we picked 7 games, and I was like 7-0, and you guys maybe got 1 or 2.
Listen, Brice. Okay, you see, there's this thing where we call welcoming back guest. You might want to remember that. Just keep that in mind.
So I will say I ended up picking Oregon in that UCLA game, and I think both of you. I can't remember if both of you did or not, but
see, you can't remember. See, it's over. Oh no!
But I remember I did.
I think Oregon, I took UCLA. I think I took UCLA because I think the week before that I was buying UCLA stock.
I was building the case that Oregon is here to stay in the top 10.
But this is,
and I still think they are. I think they're going to keep rolling. I think we'll get a shootout, but that score seems a little outrageous that Ben's given there. So
really?
I'm going Oregon.
Have you seen the defenses?
It's some bad
Well, I
defense.
was looking at the points they've given up, and Oregon's cleaned it up a little bit lately. I mean, they only allowed 24, they allowed 10.
They haven't faced a good
So
passing offense, though, like a true good passing offense like Washington, I feel like, though. That's the other thing. I don't know if they've faced a true passing offense.
True.
There's going to be this Pac-12 race, guys, is going to be super exciting because right now USC, UCLA, and Oregon all still have one loss, and there's some head-to-heads there.
And Utah's hanging around.
Separate up. Yeah, Utah. I mean, what if Utah sneaks into that Pac-12 championship game and wins it, dude?
I'd be so mad
mainly because Josh has just been like remove them from ever.
Remember,
forever.
too, one of those losses was to Florida, so it was non-conference, so it doesn't count towards the Pac-12 standings.
That's true.
Oregon's loss too, as of right now, also does not count towards the conference standings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing.
He wanted to add the Florida thing because it's the one thing they've done good this year. So
yeah,
it's kind of funny to look back and be like, how'd Florida win that game? But Pac-12. So let's move to the ACC now, where we have Louisville, 6-3 Louisville at Clemson.
Wait, how'd you say that? Louisville?
Should I say it Louisville? Is that how we say it? Is that how we say it in Ohio?
Louisville.
6-3 Louisville at Clemson. Clemson, they're giving 7-point favorite to here, but coming off that disappointing loss at Notre Dame, where the offense gave away a couple touchdowns. I think there's some picks.
I picked it.
Yeah, I didn't think that Notre Dame's offense had what it took to beat Clemson. And I mean, when you get a couple defensive scores, it certainly helps. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
It's made us a High State fan so happy. It's made us a High State fan so happy. You have no idea,
help,
Josh.
Yeah. It was a total team effort right there, offense and defense scoring points. Guys, DJU benched in I think it was the third or fourth quarter. Cade Klubnik comes in for a drive, throws a pick, and then is benched for DJU. So it's like, what are you doing? Like, was DJU truly bad enough that you had to bench him? Or
everyone, Streeter is back. He is truly ruining quarterbacks.
Brandon Streeter ruins quarterbacks. You can't prove otherwise. You have no evidence.
Chris Drew is correct. Correct.
So that's one question, is like, who's going to take it? I mean, I don't think that it's like a rumor or anything.
Can we just not talk about
the starter? But who's going to start at quarterback for Clemson this week? Honestly.
Can we talk about how the fact that we don't have to talk about the fact that I had DJU in my Heisman at number 3 like 3 weeks ago.
No, we don't have to do that, but we could talk about how Notre Dame has beaten all the good teams in the ACC, and if they just joined a conference, all those terrible losses they had to Stanford, to Ohio State, and to Marshall could like be erased, and they could have an ACC title at the end of the year. But they won't have it. It's just going to be a lame 8-4 season.
See, if you haven't noticed, Brice, Josh is still salty about the fact that Notre Dame hasn't joined a conference. But I will say this: my thing is I think this is the end of the era for Clemson. That's just my thought. I could be completely wrong. But
when you say the end of an era, do you mean as a playoff contender or even being good at all?
Playoff contender. I don't see them coming back. I don't see them in. I could see them getting to like 6 or 7 every year, but I don't know if I could see them consistently being up there in the top 4. That's my
yeah.
thought.
I think they can definitely go like 9-3 or 10-2, just because I mean the ACC is like, we don't have like what Miami has done nothing to show me that they're on the rise. Yeah. Florida State's kind of there. North Carolina, if they can get a defense, as long as Drake May's there, can be competitive. But that conference, man, I think Clemson can always win 9 or 10 games there. But being a playoff contender, and if the ACC is not getting respect, dude, they're not going to respect a conference championship out of the ACC, even if you are, finishing 12-1.
Yeah,
depending on the rest of the field. So
I will go Clemson this game, just because I think Louisville is not. I don't.
You don't believe in Malik Cunningham?
I feel like it's like we're picking between horseshoes and hand grenades at this point. Like, who's going to be the better on that day?
A grenade, right? Like, because it'll explode the horseshoe.
Oh my goodness, dude. Oh my word. So I'm going to go Clemson 35, Louisville 28, I think 24, something like that. So that's what I'm going to go with. Brice?
I really, really want to go Louisville, but Clemson.
I really want to go Louisville too, and I'm just going to do it because I haven't had the balls to pick Arkansas against LSU, so I'm going to go ahead and say Louisville. That'll be my upset pick this week. Louisville over Clemson.
if I had to make an upset pick, if it was a rule, that's what I'd pick. But it's not a rule, so I'm picking Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, I am taking Texas to beat TCU. Is that technically an upset since
Oh
Vegas
yeah, I
says
mean,
Texas is
so,
winning?
so am I. I
kind of.
guess.
Is
Okay, that's my upset.
I'm
It's
guessing
weird
the
because
next,
TCU's ranked 4th, but
yeah,
Texas is the Vegas favorite. So I don't know who, depending on who you ask, I
I'm guessing
guess.
the next game is a Ohio State game, right?
I had one
kidding.
more, and it's North Carolina at Wake Forest.
Ooh,
Just
this is where
because
I'm
Man,
North
you're
surprising
just
Carolina,
people.
I bring it up just because North Carolina is quietly only has one loss right now, can still win the ACC, could even be like a dark horse playoff contender, but they got to win this game against Wake Forest. And the defense at UNC has been what's been holding them back
Bad.
and making them not win by as much as they probably should. Sam Hartman's a quarterback that could definitely tear this defense up. This was an exciting game last season, guys. I don't know if you watched it, but both teams, I think, ended up in the 60s last
Yeah.
year. So this is at Wake. They're a 3.5-point favorite. Is this like another team that can trip up North Carolina similar to how Notre Dame did?
I think it's going to be, I truly believe this is when North Carolina loses. And I think it's going to be Wake Forest. I think it's going to be Wake Forest 48, North Carolina 41. I think Drake Maye's still going to get his numbers, but I just think this defense is not good. And I think this defense is not going to be able to contain Sam Hartman. So, yeah. Brice, what about you?
Picking North Carolina. But I can't believe you're just spitting on that ranked UCF and Tulane matchup right now. It's 17 versus
stop.
22. Come on.
Do you want to talk? I mean, I don't have anything to add. Like, I don't know
I
anything
have
about
no
either
notes to add
team.
other than UCF's going to win.
I have no stat other than UCF. I mean, they have a national
Listen, the Green
championship
Wave
on
is
their
gonna
resume,
win.
and Tulane doesn't. So
The Green Wave is going to win.
UCF.
Tulane with the logo that looks like a 6th grader drew it.
Josh, we didn't hear your pick, by the way, Josh. Wake Forest or
That's
or
right.
North Carolina.
Give me North Carolina. I think they can win a shootout, but it's gonna be close, way closer than what it should be. If only their defense could get some stops. And then Tulane, UCF. I'm just gonna take UCF because higher ranking and national championship on their resume.
Oh, stop.
Well,
Just
actually,
stop.
UCF's the
Just stop.
UCF's the lower ranked right now. They're
Are they?
22.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 22.
Shoot, now I don't know how I'm supposed to pick.
Tulane's 17, but I think
Jeez.
UCF's better. So
Tulane does have a quality win over Kansas State with a healthy Adrian Martinez.
Kansas State's overrated. They might lose to Baylor this week.
They might. Yeah.
Can we talk about? Can we briefly talk
Still
about?
give me UCF.
Yeah.
Based on nothing.
Good choice.
Josh, I would ask that we can talk briefly about the Ohio State game from last week.
From last week, you don't want to talk about the big important matchup they got this week against IU?
I'm combining the two. Okay. I mean, like briefly talk about it. I just want to open this because I know Brice watched last week's game, and Josh, did you watch last week's game too?
I did not. I was hearing a lot of what was going on.
Yeah. So for those of you that didn't watch, there was literally about 50 mile per hour wind. There we go.
50 mile per hour winds.
It was literally blowing sideways and everything like that. So when I always tell people, when you just look at the box score, it looks like CJ Stroud had the worst game of his career, which in some cases, yes, he did. But in other cases, if you would watch that game, and Brice, you can touch on this too, it was probably the hardest game I'm a former quarterback, and it was probably one of the hardest games I've ever seen a quarterback struggle with balls carrying or, going sideways because of the way the wind's blowing. There are a few things that worry me about Ohio State. But the biggest thing that worries me is the fact that one is it took this long to realize that CJ Stroud is a threat that could run if needed, if we would just draw some of these plays up. And the second thing is the fact the offensive line just did not get a bounce off of the Northwestern defense, which is something that should happen and they need to fix before, I think, this week against Indiana, next week against Maryland, before that Michigan game. They need to fix it. They should run the ball 95% of the time if you need to get it fixed or whatever you need to do. But I will say, I think the defense last week played tremendous. And I'm telling people this, it might not seem like it, but it's like you watch. I mean, yeah, they gave up some runs here and there, but overall, this defense, JTT and the way the linebackers played, I mean, just played a really great game. And so it looked like a rough game. It's like you scored only 21 points against Northwestern. Yeah, but if you would have watched the game and what the weather was in, I think you would have been proud if your team scored 21 points Brice, go ahead and add what you want to add.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit all the points there. I agree with you on everything. My disappointment while watching that game was just more so like, oh, this is the third week in a row where it seems like we're not doing much. And yeah, the weather was a factor, and I'm glad that it looks like the playoff committee.
Yeah, they did do that. Yeah, which I was really happy about.
Yeah, granted though, I mean everybody else kind of around them still
They
lost.
when you got 3 of the top 6 teams losing, like that was the week to struggle with Northwestern if there ever was one.
Yeah, if it's gonna happen, I just really want to see Ohio State go out there and just blow out Indiana. I want to see so bad.
I really think, Brice, that I think Ohio State this week will. This is my hot take and my prediction this week is that Ohio State will win the game by 40 points and they will run the ball for 200 plus yards. I believe that Ryan Day is going to sit there and go, okay, if we throw for 200, great. If we don't throw for 200, that's fine. Who cares? We need to show Michigan and all these other teams, because I read an article today that said Ohio State is the most overlooked team right now, sitting at number 2 in the college football rankings. Because when this team is on par, and Brice and Josh, you both seen it, when Ohio State is playing at the top end of their level this year, it is a team that I don't think any team in the country wants to face, because they're good defensively and they're good offensively.
As a fan, I don't want to feel like we're there because everybody around us lost. I want to feel like we're there because we've earned being in that 2 spot. And if we're basing it on the past like 3 weeks, I don't feel like we're there because
of course,
we're the number 2 team. Yeah. But I do think our offense is the most explosive and the best. But it just sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't. I need it to click consistently to think that we can beat Michigan this year. And I mean, this is a separate point, but I'm more excited for this Ohio State Michigan game this year than I think I have been for.
It's been since the game, and since the game of the century. I think it was in 2006 when it was 1 versus 2. This is the most excited I've been since then.
Yeah,
when it's just like, this is going to be a heavy hitting powerhouse.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I like feel scared for it. Like, because Michigan's good. They're good.
They're good.
Michigan's really good. Yeah. I'll just add in, because you guys have already kind of touched on it all. 3 straight games now, Ohio State's offensive line has struggled against a defensive line, opening up holes in the run game. Like, you could excuse it maybe against Iowa, and just Iowa's a good defense, and a Penn State, because Penn State top 15 team in the country. Yeah. But Northwestern, whose defensive line I'm sure is full of 2- and 3-star recruits, you couldn't open up a lane for Mayan Williams when all your guys got probably 30 pounds on your opponent and maybe 2 or 3 stars on him. It's like, if we ever end up in a situation where, say, you're playing a team like Georgia, who has a secondary that can lock up Ohio State's receivers like they did Tennessee's last week, which means that you have to be able to run the football. Will your offensive line be able to open up holes against a defensive line like that? Or if you play Michigan in the elements in Columbus, Ohio, and you have to deal with that bad weather again, are you going to be able to open up run lanes against Michigan's defensive line? I don't know if you can right now. Like, we've seen Ohio State at its best be one of the best offenses in the country, one of the best defenses in the country. And I think that's what's helped them with the committee, at least, is they got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, who are probably the 2 best teams on offense and defense in the country. We've seen that Tennessee's offense, it's got its limitations. When you don't have a defense, you're going to lose some games. We've seen it with Bama. We've seen it with some of those other teams too. So now if you're Ohio State, it's like, okay, can we run the football when the pass game isn't gonna like work? I don't know if you can right now.
My biggest thing is this: Ryan Day, if you're listening, I know you are. You listen to our podcast every week, obviously. I would like to say this: could you just like run not screen passes the first 3 plays of the game? Can we just run the ball? Like, and this is the thing. I said this to my dad on the phone. Ohio State needs to stop running these zone. It's all right. It's actually not their choice. It's the running backs have decided to bounce out all these runs outside. I'm like, I'm sorry. If there's a hole down the middle, when did Travion Henderson get his touchdown against Penn State? It was right down between the A gap. It was straight down the A and B gap. It was straight down there, straight down there. Run north and south, not east and west. I'm tired of seeing these like juke it out. It's like, dude, some of my favorite running backs of all time are guys that just put their heads down and said, screw it, right? Like Zeke Elliott, Trey Sermon for Ohio State. That's what they did. They just put their head down and outran people and ran people over. I want to see more of that from Ohio State running backs, not doing all these jipping and jiving and all these different things. Because I think, and then if you can have Stroud do a read option 4 times a game, that opens up your whole passing options, your running options, because the teams have to then have an end there to go, oh, he might actually run, because we saw what he can do when he does get out in the open.
They are slowly but surely kind of putting that on tape, I think. We've seen CJ in the games leading up to even that Northwestern one, like take off for like a couple like scrambles, I guess you could say. And then in Northwestern, it was just kind of like, these guys aren't catching the football. We can't throw it. I'll go and do it myself.
And
So
he's got
and he did
wheels,
it.
but people don't realize he's actually got some wheels on him. Like when he gets out and
Well,
going, he's got some wheels on him.
it's nothing that's gonna like, impress anybody like at the
Yeah.
combine with the 40-yard
But he
dash.
can
But
get
it's
away.
kind of like those long strides, similar to like what Terrell Pryor had.
Yeah.
Pryor could actually run though, but I think the strides help. Like it doesn't look like he's running fast, but he's probably running faster than like what you think.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Those are some great games.
OSU is a 40-point favorite too
Yes.
against IU, so
See,
they
I
better
called
cover
it.
that. They better
Bam.
freaking cover that. IU, I think, is a bottom 20 scoring defense
They're
and
really
offense.
bad. They're really bad.
They're very, very bad. So I don't think that we may not be able to find out if you actually can run in that game because they're going to be passing it a ton. I think
true.
Marv's going to have an insane game.
Dude,
as long as it's
by the
not
way,
windy.
can I just point out a fact here? Marvin Harrison is the best wide receiver in the country right now.
He might be.
He literally is. By the way, I want to throw you a stat. Out of his, I think 48 catches, I think he has. I believe it's like near 40 of them go for first downs. Let's just think about this for a second. 40 of his catches have gone for first downs. And I think he's only had like 5 catches that are under 5 yards. So think about that for a second. Like this man is like a go-to guy. Like if you need to get a first down, where does CJ Stroud go? You know where he's going. And it's Marvin Harrison Jr., who, by the way, looks and runs like his dad. He just is about 4 inches taller.
Yeah. Freaky athlete. But that's kind of like, I guess, the rundown of some of the teams and games. Want to quickly go through power rankings and Heisman lists?
Let's do it.
All right. I'll lead off the power rankings.
Yeah.
So I've kind of already alluded to some of these, and it's going to be similar to what the committee thinks. But I got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2. I'm going to keep Michigan at 3. I'm going to – this is where it gets tricky, man. I'm going to put Tennessee at 4.
Ooh.
And then since I'm picking – I know I'm picking Texas to beat TCU, but I still think TCU can probably beat most teams in the country right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put TCU 5.
Interesting. I'm going to go run down. Last week, I did have Ohio State first, which will not happen this week. And then I had Georgia 2.
Brian
Tennessee
Grant thanks
3.
you.
Yeah, dude, Brian Grant. Dude, okay, first off, I want to address this. I'm going to stop this real quick right here, okay? Brian Grant, if you would actually listen to our podcast instead of just jumping on at, by the way, 3 days after the games even existed. And by the way, if you look at the post date, it was always before the games or like halfway through the first, like, by the way, just never mind. This is the thing. Like, it drives me nuts that he thinks I'm biased. Like, okay, who else are you going to have above Ohio State? Name it. Who else at that time?
Joel
at that
Klatt had Ohio State 1. The Cranes had Ohio State at 1 for a little while there.
I'm like, Brian Grant. Okay, I love BG. BG, I love you. You know you're a great guy, but still, shut up. So I had Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Tennessee 3, Michigan 4, Alabama 5. This week I have Ohio State at 2. I have Georgia. So I have Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2. I have Michigan at 3. At 4, I have TCU. Believer in Duggan. And then at 5, I have Tennessee. I believe Tennessee is still in the top 5 for me. So pretty much what the committee had. So that's my power rankings. Brice, what about you?
My power rankings, the top 3 for me was fairly easy. I have Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Tennessee number 3. I think they're still up there. Again, this isn't based on the playoffs. This is just
right. This is a power ranking. It's not a playoff poll. It's not an AP top 25. It is a power ranking. And
number 4, I got Michigan. And number 5, I don't know why, but I just could not pick anyone else. But I still have Alabama in the top 5. I know they lost to LSU. I think on any given game, like 9 times out of 10, they'd beat LSU.
In your defense, if those games against Texas, against LSU, and against Tennessee were at Alabama, they might have been walking out with a win.
That's true.
Those are 3 tough road games that were all decided by a total of 5 points.
Exactly.
That is true.
Yeah, so Alabama's still at 5.
There we go.
Those are games that past Alabama teams are winning by a lot more than that. But, yeah, I mean, Alabama's still a really good football team at the end of the day. Hey. I just don't think they're playoff caliber.
So the question is, Josh, has your Heisman list changed?
It has. And I struggle with who I'm going to put at the top.
Oh,
just
please
because everybody's like, let me explain. CJ Stroud has just kind of been like de facto number one just because it's like, I mean, he looks like the best. Like he's had his stretches where he struggled. He's had his overall games like this weekend and Rutgers where he didn't look his best. And then Hendon Hooker has kind of been riding on the fact that Tennessee has an undefeated record, could be winning the SEC. You know, it's a good story. The numbers may not be as high as some of these other quarterbacks.
You better not do what I think you're going to do.
What do you think I'm going to do? But first,
I thought you were going to just put Drake May up there at 1.
I thought about it. It crossed my mind, dude, because I was like, since there's no like real narrative to go off of, shouldn't we just go with like who has all the totals right now? Because that is Drake May.
Yeah.
So instead of putting Drake May at 1, I just decided to leave number 1 blank and put 3 people at number 2: Hendon Hooker, CJ Stroud, and Drake May.
Oh my gosh. You
cheater.
I cheated. I needed
you know how hard it's gonna be to make that graphic. Oh my word! You just made my job 3 times harder.
You could just put all 3 of them and put them all number 2, number 2, number 2.
Fine,
there,
whatever.
fixed it for you.
Jeez.
But you still need to fit 3 more under.
What is it? 4th and
2
5th
more
then?
here. So now we're at 4th and 5th. So 4th, I'm bumping up Bo Nix into the list, the new face. Bo Nix at number 4. He's been earning it, dude. And that's what made it so hard to take out one of these guys in my other list, because it's like, okay, who do I take out? Because Bo Nix clearly earns it, but who's falling out? I decided to drop out Max Duggan, put Blake Corum at 5. So at 1, none. At 2, Hooker, Stroud, May. At 3, Nix. I mean, technically at 4, Nix. 5, Blake Corum.
Okay, I'm honestly in shock. Like, by the way, everyone knows I did not know this before we started recording. So, like, I'm literally.
I know that Aaron Lynn put like a tie, like when he did the show early in the season, and we kind of gave him a little hard time about it. But it's just like, I don't know who's winning the Heisman right now. Like Bryce Young won the Heisman last year basically by default because nobody ran away with it, and I feel like we're in a similar situation right now.
Yeah,
where it's like, who do we like?
Yeah,
as much as we want to argue that okay, CJ Stroud, like the weather had a lot to do with that game. It's still happening. That's still his stat line.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we also have to look overall game, and I think game performance, what they've done overall, I think in how they've played. So for me, I couldn't change much in my list because I just felt like there was no one that really did a lot last week. So CJ Stroud is still number 1 for me. I just think he proved something last week that I think is that he answered a question that we all had about him. And I think that was something that even though he struggled passing, he answered a question that we didn't know about him. And if he would be willing to do, and he did it. So, by the way, because I think some of those were his choices, does he want to run or not? And so that to me showed something that he did do. And so I have CJ Stroud at 1. At 2, I actually have Drake May. I think Drake May he's just slowly just been creeping on my mind. Like, man, this guy has a legit shot to win the Heisman. And so he's at 2 for me. 3 is at Hendon Hooker. I just think his game, I just felt like I watched that game and I was like, where is Hendon Hooker? Like, where's this guy that everyone's saying is better than Stroud that is going to win the Heisman? I was like, I don't see it. And that was against a big that game he needed to cement himself, because if he wins that game, he wins the
both
Heisman.
Bama and Georgia.
It's
like
over.
He would have locked it up.
Yeah. So Hendon Hooker at 3 for me. 4, I have a man, Duggan, and then at 5, I have. Oh, gosh, I have Blake Corum. Yeah, just move on from that. So
there we go.
Those are my 5.
I'm going to go ahead and make your life easier with that graphic, because that is a good point that you brought up about CJ. He answered a question. We now know that he has that dog in him. So I will put him at 1, May at 2, Hooker at 3, Bo Nix at 4, and Blake Corum at 5. That'll make the graphic easier.
I want to. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I will say this. I was going to put.
That's
Bo
also
Nix.
A true 1 through 5.
That is true, actually. I did say with Bo Nix, I was going to put Bo Nix in. He was at 6 for me, but because I have TCU winning against Texas, I feel like I need to go with that.
Undefeated TCU narrative is really good.
So Bo Nix for me.
On your side.
Yeah, so Bo Nix for me, it's just right on the outside. Maybe next week he's in there. So what about you, Brice?
Yeah, so last time I did it, I didn't quite know what I was talking about. I haven't always been a big follower of the Heisman race, but this week I looked into it quite a bit more, and dang, it was tough. I mean, there's so many names that I could put on my top 5. Stetson Bennett, Bo Nix, was a USC kid, Caleb Williams. But my top 5 ended up being, well, I'll go ahead and start with 5 and go to 1. I think it makes a little more suspenseful. I think at 5, I still have a TCU, Duggan. I think if he loses this week, we'll see him fall off, but he's still there. Number 4, we got May from North Carolina. Number 3, we have Michigan's running back Corum. I'm kind of looking at that as like an MVP. How would we view an MVP in the NFL? So to me, he's that offense right now in Michigan. He's carrying them, and
he
they're
is
good,
the
so.
offense for them.
Yeah, and then we got Hooker at 2, and I still got Stroud at number 1. I think he's still the favorite. I think by the end of the year, he's going to keep it.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
Power rankings and Heisman list. There you have it, folks.
Check.
A lot of the same names, slightly different orders among us.
And Ben
I have
proved,
a true 1
and
through
Ben
5
helped,
now.
and Ben helped Josh understand the true reason. And
I still don't like putting Stroud at 1, but it's like if you wanted an argument for like who should be at 1 right now between those 3 guys, at least we did learn something from CJ. We didn't learn anything positive from
ran.
Hooker.
Think about it. He ran for more than he threw. It's impressive.
Yeah, never thought that we'd see that in a CJ Stroud stat line. But Brice, you are the resident UFC expert. We have, I don't know how much time we have left of yours, but this card is interesting. There's some big matchups on it. Not as big as the last card, but I mean, everybody I'm sure is excited to see Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler
Absolutely.
and Israel Adesanya,
100%.
Alex Pereira.
Yeah. I've wanted to see the Dustin Poirier Chandler fight. I don't know if I've talked about it in the podcast, but I've wanted to see this fight since before Chandler even called out Poirier. Like I thought, dang, that would be the perfect matchup. They're both like stand and bang, meet in the center kind of guys. The matchup is just so fun. Poirier has better jiu-jitsu than some would say. Chandler's a great wrestler. I mean, 3 rounds. Since it's a 3-round fight, not 5, they're not going to take their time and ease into it first.
Right.
It's going to be an all-out banger.
We've seen Chandler take some big shots too. Like, was it Tony Ferguson that he knocked with that kick?
Yeah, and Ferguson was winning that fight until then.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would dispute that. And all of Chandler's fights have been so exciting and just absolute bangers. And this is kind of, I don't know how much more damage he can take. Like, to me, this is kind of his last real chance to maybe work his way to another title shot. If he wins this, maybe he could have another one, maybe set himself up for a title shot. Same situation with Poirier. He's had his title shots a couple times. I think he'd have to win this and then maybe one more. The whole lightweight division is just kind of a mess with the rankings right now, with Islam Makhachev winning. Charles Oliveira is still amazing. Gaethje needs his chance. Well, he's had his chance, but I mean, I meant to say Dariush needs his chance. He's due for a title. I don't know how it's going to shape up the division, but it'll answer a lot of questions like who stays, who goes.
Right.
Because they're both kind of getting up there in age and in their careers, but there's just so many exciting things about the fight. You don't, even if you're not a fight fan or a UFC fan and just like think martial arts is cool or something, it's going to be an awesome fight. If you want to say anything on it, you can.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we talked about how stacked that lightweight division really is, and Michael Chandler, regardless if he wins or loses, always seems to put up a big fight, put up a big show. But right now, Vegas has Poirier as a -230 favorite.
Yeah.
Would you say that's accurate?
That's fair. I would say that's accurate. Yep.
It's very accurate.
Poirier's just got more experience. He's just a little bit better at everything, I think.
Yeah. He's got a 28-7 record. Chandler's got a 23-7, so same losses, but Poirier's got 5 extra wins.
I would like to point out a stat. I have a stat. I have done research.
All right. Ben coming prepared. Not playing Candy Crush anymore. Those days are
actually.
back.
I'm not.
You did not.
He has a 51% striking accuracy, and I'm talking about what's his face? Dustin Poirier, the Diamond, has a 51% striking accuracy and a 37% takedown accuracy, which could cause him some issues if I'm doing my logic and math correctly. But I will also say he has a 64% takedown defense, which means if I do my math correctly, is pretty good. So
yeah, no, that's really good.
I'm just saying he wins 54% of his fights by KO or TKO, which means time kettle option. I don't know. But I will say those are Ben Bowden stats, and I have now given out, and I will say
I don't see the fight. I don't see the fight going to the decision. There's going to be a knockout one way or the other. That's just how both these guys fight.
Josh, are you proud of me?
Man, did you say TKO? Like, what'd you say it stands for?
It's a time kettle option.
I
Love
think
it.
Poirier wins with a round 3 knockout. And by the way, if you guys like hot sauce, Dustin Poirier has his own hot sauce brand. Really good.
Really? Is it good? Have you had it?
Yeah, I have, and he just came out with a new one, like a maple flavored one.
See,
But I don't know. I haven't tried
Josh,
it yet.
I was on task. He wasn't on task. I was on task. Just pointing
Man,
that
how am I
out.
supposed to know he's got a hot sauce brand, man? Does it help that I know that Connor has like his own whiskey company?
Okay,
Yeah.
that everyone
So
does
I
that.
mean, last time Poirier and McGregor fought, they were like advertising each other's products. Like before McGregor went rogue again and became a jerk again, he was like, "Oh, look at Poirier's
Became
product;
a
it's so
jerk
cool."
again.
Yeah,
But
that's cool. Yeah.
yeah, that fight's gonna be so fun, man. Don't miss it. Any college football game is not
The other thing
worth
too that
seeing
helps
all
me is
this.
that this main card starts at 10 p.m., not 2 p.m. like the
Yeah.
Great,
last one.
lovely. So it starts at like 4 in the morning for me. 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Sorry, man.
Ben's screwed, but it helps my schedule out a lot. I guess is there anything to watch for with Carla Esparza and Zhang Weili, which I definitely messed those names
Wei
up.
Li Zhang. Wei Li Zhang was the first Chinese champion in the women's. She's not the champion right now. Esparza is, but she did have it at one point. Lost it to Rose Namajunas at UFC 261. Tried to get it back, lost again. Esparza and Rose fought. I don't know how long ago. It was a few months ago, and it was one of the most boring fights of all time. I don't know if you watched it or not, but Esparza won by decision, and there was like 10 strikes landed the whole fight. It was just so miserable to watch. I don't see Esparza standing a chance against Wei Li Zhang. Her strength is insane. Her training regime is just insane. I don't expect that fight to maybe even go out of the first round. I
Weili
don't.
Zhang's
I
a
think.
heavy favorite too.
Yeah, I
Minus
think she gets the
360.
belt. She gets the belt back, and I think she holds it for a while. She's
I have
really good.
stats. Josh, I have
Ben
stats.
with the stats. Let's hear
Yes.
him.
So Magnum is what Zhang Weili is called. And she has a 48% striking accuracy, so a little less than half of the time, but she does have 60% takedown. And then she has this other thing, 5.78 SIG point STR point landed. So significant strikes, I'm guessing that's what it's called.
Yep.
See, look at that.
Yep.
And she wins 50% of her matches by KO. And I'm going to predict the Chinese come back and they build a Great Wall of China and defend.
Right. I think so too.
I hope she's gonna have a great wall because Carla Esparza is a great wrestler and great taking down. So she's gonna have to show her defense and show that her ground game is improved.
There we
We'll
go.
see.
Moving on to the main event. This is one that I've been excited about for a long time. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. The storyline with Pereira defeating Adesanya back in their kickboxing days twice, I think is super exciting. But in UFC, at least, Pereira's only got a 6-1 record. Adesanya's 23-1. Adesanya is a minus 210 favorite here, but I mean, Brice has even discussed it with me before in the past. The last couple of title fights that Adesanya's had, he's kind of just been doing just enough to win. He hasn't really been taking many shots or like any kind of strikes. And all I hear about is what a great striker he is, but I've just never been able to see it since I've started to follow UFC a little bit more close. But I have heard that Pereira is like a KO guy. And I mean, he's done it to Adesanya in the past. And I mean, I think if Izzy, tries to fight the way he has his last 3 or 4 title fights, this could have upset written all over it.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I remember telling you about this one before.
You did. You told me about Pereira, and I watched his
before
one fight
he even
before they
fought his last fight, and I was like, he's gonna beat this guy, and then he's
right,
gonna
and then he's
fight
gonna fight Izzy,
Adesanya,
and I was like, really? Oh
and
man.
then he's gonna beat Izzy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get the Izzy that we got when he
You can't hurt me. I'm prepared to die. That Izzy.
yeah,
No
when
one's
he
touching
fought
that
Kevin
dog.
Gastelum,
Yeah.
then I think it'll be hard to pick against Adesanya because this is MMA, not just kickboxing.
Right.
But I've never seen Adesanya have any kind of ground game. I haven't seen Pierre have any kind of ground game either. So I don't know. I want this fight to be really exciting and bloodbath, but something tells me it's going to end up being like kind of boring and technical. And not that technical fights are always boring, but for like a casual fan, they're going to want to see a lot more beaten up and blood. I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to get. I think it's going to probably go down to a decision, and Right now I'm favoring Pera. It's hard to pick though, because I think Adesanya has the ability to win this fight 9 times out of 10. But with all the drama behind it in the past, and I think it's probably getting to his head more than he's leading on, especially just listening to the press conferences and everything. I'm gonna go Pera in a I'm gonna say split decision.
Mm.
I'm gonna go Adesanya, the last style bender, with a roundhouse kick to the jaw, and it knocks him out. Adesanya
Good
keeps
enough.
the belt. You see that? Mm-hmm. See that? Josh,
I want to see
I'm
Adesanya
learning.
lose. I'm sorry, I'll admit it. I want to see him lose.
It's all about the prep. It's all about the pre-game antics. And have you seen his dances? They're unreal. It's like WWE. It's amazing.
He had the Undertaker entrance the last time he fought against Jared Cannonier, I think it was.
Yeah. If Adesanya loses, though, I think it's going to force him to like be really entertaining again, and fight two times.
I will say, I've heard from my UFC friends that like watching it. They say that like he just seems like he's mellowed down so much that like people don't really enjoy always watching his stuff because they feel like it's not the same. Like I'm prepared to die.
Like he's just fighting to keep the belt. He's not fighting to die in there and to give the fans a show. He literally likes keeping the belt, keeping the paycheck that comes with it. It's I don't blame him to a degree, but
like to him, like he's doing like what I don't want to say what most guys do, but I mean it's smart, like minimal damage to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in the process keeps his career going longer. But
that's true.
I think he does need to face a guy that actually is going to force him to fight a little bit. I thought Jared Cannonier might have been that guy, but he kind of got a little timid after that first round. Yeah. So
Vieira strikes fast, man. I could be very wrong. It might not be a boring kind of just one punch here, one punch there. I mean, it might just be stand in the middle, a bunch of quick punches are thrown, and then it's over. I don't know. But that's the beauty of the fighting. You just don't know how it's going to go.
For sure. And I mean, since Pereira has beaten him twice in the past, maybe this is the time that Izzy gets his mojo back, defeats him in the third one. Also, finally, I guess, reaches that point where it's like, okay, he does have to fight. And we see Pereira bring out the best version of Adesanya. So I'm going to go ahead and take Izzy.
It's a 5-round fight. So maybe it'll start off slow and then brings him out.
I'm going to take Izzy to defend the title. And I think that it's going to be, one that we see a lot of striking in. I hope I'm right about that. It's what I want to see. I'm hoping for that. And I'm going to go ahead and say that's my prediction as well. Maybe like a split decision. I don't know if this is like necessarily knockout, but I'll go with the split decision with you as well. But I think it's going to be, a more aggressive fight from Izzy that we haven't seen in a while.
I hope so.
Yeah. One other thing on that too, Brice, Pereira's record's only 6-1, so very minimal UFC experience. How do you think Dana White picked this matchup? Do you think the history between the two played into that, or is he just kind of beating all the best guys in the weight class and he's looking for maybe a younger contender to maybe get a shot?
I think it's a mix of everything. I think Dana did see that the dude has potential. I mean, he wouldn't have just matched him up with Sean Strickland like right away, knowing that Strickland was like a one fight away from a title shot. I think he really saw his ability and his potential and was like, well, this just makes so much sense. Let's put the fight together. Winner gets a shot. But I think he knew in the back of his mind that Piero was going to win. And if he does, I mean, what are you going to lose? It sets up the perfect story. And they do set up fights for stories, whether they want to play it off or not. I mean, it's in a way.
You got to give the people what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, what's going to make you more money, honestly? You're going to be more prone to buying a pay-per-view if it brings that story together. And how can you pass up a story like that, losing the kickboxing twice? So I think it's a mix of everything, but I think it probably is mostly because of the story. I mean, the fact that he even got to fight Strickland so quickly to get to one fight away from a title shot. So yeah.
And then just wrapping up the UFC discussion, future title shots. Do you think Sean O'Malley earned a title shot against Islam in the lightweight?
No. You mean so you're saying for Sean O'Malley to move up and fight in the lightweight?
Well, isn't that who he'd be playing?
No, Sean O'Malley's in the bantamweight.
Excuse me, I mixed up the classes. That's my fault. It should be Aljamain Sterling, right?
Yeah.
I mixed that up. Yeah, so he should be getting a title shot against Aljamain now, right?
I think there's a couple other guys that would deserve a shot for O'Malley, the whole O'Malley thing makes absolutely no sense. And this one I won't defend Dana. This is, or the UFC. This is clearly a story trying to make another Conor McGregor thing. The last fight he was even in is arguable that he even won. I had it the other way. It was close there. I think Marlon Chito Vera makes way more sense for another title shot. Divashili, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, makes more sense for a title shot. But what makes a lot of sense, which is actually correct on O'Malley's analysis, is he should just fight Chito Vera, whom he lost to before with a leg injury, for an interim title. Because Sterling claims he's going to be out till mid next year, which is ridiculous. So have O'Malley and Chito Vera fight each other for an interim belt, and they can just kind of act as a champion until
get the revenge, because that's O'Malley's only loss in the UFC, right?
Yeah, and that would be a crazy fight because Chito Vera.
We'd love to see the rematch then.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about stories too, I mean, that story
for sure. All right, I think that's everything. Since we are a sports podcast, I did want to point out that the Astros won the World Series in 6 games the other day. So I guess that's all the baseball talk that needed to be said.
Josh is right. And yeah, I mean,
now we get to move on to MLB free agency.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun things to talk about in the future. First off, we want to say thank you again, Brice, for joining us. We thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom. It's fun to talk with a fellow sport lover that loves to talk about all different types of sports and cover a lot of different things. So thank you so much, Brice. And for all of you out there that have been watching, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. Do whatever you have to do to share it with people, because we want to hear it. Like Brian Grant, watch our videos. You'll be able to see what we truly are meaning, not just a little snippet. So anytime you want to know what we're talking about, come over here and share it with your friends and family as well. And if you're on Spotify, make sure you give us a nice rating. Who's better at picking UFC fights, Josh or Ben? Give us a rating on what you think. I mean, personally, I am, but that's just
I don't think we differed on any this time, unfortunately.
That is true.
But we'll see if we are good at picking fights.
That is true. But overall, it was a great episode. We hope you guys have a great time. Hope you guys had loved it watching this or listening to this. And have a great weekend. Make sure you go watch some sports. There's a lot of great things happening this weekend. College basketball, NBA, college football, NFL, UFC.
Eagles on prime time.
Yeah, you name it. It's happening this weekend.
Eagles.
Hey, you name it. It's happening this weekend. So hopefully you guys have a great one. Have some fun with family. And until next time, we'll see ya.